Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the theater of the 1930s, the 1940s, and the 1950s. Some critics would argue that these 3 decades produced some of the very best theater of the 20th century. I heartily agree. In the 1930s, some drama was written in reaction and in response to the Great Depression. William Saroyan wrote eloquently about the down and out and the disenfranchised. The 1940s saw a resurgence to the themes of nationalism and patriotism. Perhaps in reaction to that, Arthur Miller wrote masterpieces about the American dream gone awry. Meanwhile, Tennessee Williams and Eugene O'Neill write about the loneliness, dysfunction, and despair inherent in some families. Mary Chase has a runaway smash success with her play Harvey. It is a subtle lampooning of the entire psychiatric milieu. Who could ever forget the irrepressible Jimmy Stewart playing Elwood Dowd in the movie version of the play? Thornton Wilder won the Pulitzer Prize for his play Our Town, and he follows it up with something so completely different, The Skin of Our Teeth, you would hardly think it came from the same playwright. The Skin of Our Teeth is certainly the American version of theater of the absurd. Tonight I will be doing monologues from these and other prominent playwrights. Now I'm not going to do them chronologically, but rather I will dart back and forth from one decade to the next. I will play fathers, sons, husbands, lovers, con men, politicians. Notice how I put con men and politicians back to back. And because the 1940s in particular were so replete with classic musical comedy theater, I'd like to begin the evening by singing that timeless George and Ira Gershwin classic, Embraceable You. Dozens of girls would storm up. I had to lock my door. Somehow I couldn't warm up to one before. What was it that controlled me? What kept my love life lean? My intuition told me you'd come on the scene. Baby, listen to the rhythm of my heartbeat, and you'll get just what I mean. Embrace me, my sweet embraceable you. Embrace me, you irreplaceable you. Just one look at you, my heart goes tipsy in me. You and you alone bring out the gypsy in me. I love all the many charms about you. Above all, I want my arms around you. Don't be a naughty baby. Come to mama, come to papa, do. My sweet embraceable you. That piece was actually written for an operetta that never got performed, and so later George and Ira Gershwin put that into their musical Girl Crazy. All right, written during the dark days of World War II, Thornton Wilder's play The Skin of Our Teeth is nonetheless a play with an intensely positive message. The play opens to an empty, bare stage, and the audience hears the radio voiceover announcer announcing the very unusual news of the day. This play is largely about the durability of mankind throughout the ages, and in this play, the Antrobus family comes to represent humanity at large. Now, say you had gone to see Thornton Wilder's play Our Town. You loved it. You've anxiously been awaiting his new play. Frankly, not all of the reviews have been positive. In fact, some of them have been scathingly negative. Nonetheless, because you loved Our Town, you took yourself to the theater and this is what you would have heard at the top of the play. The management takes pleasure in bringing to you the news events of the world. Freeport, Long Island. The sun rose this morning at 6:32 a.m. This gratifying event was first reported by Mrs. Dorothy Stetson of Freeport, Long Island, who promptly telephoned the mayor. The Society for Affirming the End of the World at once went into special session and postponed the arrival of that event for another 24 hours. All honor to Mrs. Stetson for her fine public spirit. New York City, New York, the X Theater. During the daily cleaning of this theater, a number of lost objects was found as usual by Madame Simpson, Patalewski, and Moriarty. Among the objects found today was a ring inscribed to Eva from Adam, Genesis 2:18. The ring will be returned to the rightful owner or owners should their credentials prove satisfactory. Tippahatchee, Vermont. The unprecedented cold weather this summer has produced a condition which has not yet been satisfactorily explained. There is a report that a wall of ice is now moving southward across these counties. The disruption of communication caused by the cold front now moving across the country has rendered exact information difficult, but little credence is given to the rumor that the wall of ice had pushed the Cathedral of Montreal as far south as St. Albans, Vermont. For further information, please consult your daily newspapers. Excelsior, New Jersey, the home of Mr. George Antrobus, inventor of the wheel. The discovery of the wheel, following so closely on the discovery of the lever, has centered the attention of this country on the home of Mr. George Antrobus of this attractive suburban residence district. This is his home, a commodious 7-room house, conveniently situated near a Methodist church, a public school, and a firehouse. It is also right handy to an A&P. Mr. Antrobus is said to come from a fine old stock and is said to have worked his way up from next to nothing. It is reported that he was once a gardener, but left that situation under circumstances that have been variously described. Mr. Antrobus is a veteran of foreign wars and bears a number of scars, both front and back. Mrs. Antrobus, the charming and gracious president of the Excelsior Mothers Club. Mrs. Antrobus is a fine needlewoman. It is she who invented the apron upon which so many changes have been wrought since. Here are their children, Henry and Gladys and Friend. The friend in the rear is Lily Sabina, the maid. We all want to take this opportunity to congratulate this typical American family on its enterprise, and we wish every success for Mr. Antrobus and his family in the future. Thank you very much. The news of the day. Arthur Miller won the New York Circle Drama Critics Award for his play All My Sons in 1947. The play is about the collapse of the American dream based solely on the pursuit of material or financial success. In this scene, Chris Keller, the young idealistic son of Joe Keller, has grown weary and disillusioned with his father. His father, Joe, owns a factory and with his partner has knowingly been shipping faulty airplane propeller parts, which have resulted in the deaths of 26 American pilots. Joe let his partner take the fall for this egregious act. It is now the end of the play, and the son, Chris, knows beyond a doubt that his father is culpable and guilty. In fact, if you know the play, this is the scene right before Joe Keller commits suicide. He's having a last conversation with his son, Chris, looking for sympathy, understanding, and I think perhaps finally for forgiveness. Joe Keller to his son, Chris, in the award-winning play, All My Sons. What's the matter with you? I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you exactly what's the matter. You got too much money? Is that what bothers you? If you can't get used to it, then throw it away. Take every last cent and give it to charity. Throw it in the sewer. In the sewer, that's all. Does that settle it? You think I'm kidding? I'm telling you exactly what to do. If the money's dirty, then burn it. That's your money. It's not my money. I'm an old man. I'm a dead old man. Nothing belongs to me anymore. Well, tell me what you want to do. Oh, I see. It's not what you want to do. It's what I want to do. Why? What should I want to do? Jail? You want me to go to jail? Is that where I belong? If you want me to go, then tell me. Say so. What's the matter? Why can't you tell me? You say everything else. You might as well say that. I'll tell you why you can't tell me. Because you know in your heart I don't belong there. Because you know. Who ever worked for nothing in that war? When they work for nothing, I'll work for nothing. Did they ever ship a gun or a truck out of Detroit before they got their price for it? Is that clean? It's dollars and cents. It's nickels and dimes. It's war and peace. It's dollars and cents. What's clean? Half the country's got to go to jail. If I've got to go to jail, that's why you can't tell me. That's why you can't say so. George Axelrod wrote a play called The 7-Year Itch. It was first performed at the Court Theater in 1952. Many of you would be more familiar perhaps with the movie version starring Marilyn Monroe and Tom Ewell. In this scene, Richard, a young, handsome publishing executive, is in New York City for a convention and a trade show. Richard has just had a hell of a night with the beautiful actress who, of course, in the movie was portrayed by Marilyn Monroe. It is the morning after the hell of a night, and Richard is trying to figure out how he's going to extricate himself from this situation. He's in his hotel suite. Why does he need to extricate himself from the situation? Because, of course, he's married. Oh my God, what the hell have I gotten myself into? Well, there isn't a thing to worry about. Two very attractive, intelligent people happened to meet under circumstances that seemed propitious, and well, it happened. It was all very charming and gay. As a matter of fact, it was wonderful. But now it's over. We'll say goodbye. Like two intelligent people, we'll have coffee. How can she possibly sleep like that? What's the matter with her anyway? Maybe she's sick or something. Maybe she's dead. Maybe the excitement was too much for her and she passed in her sleep. Oh my God, that means newspaper reporters and police. Attractive actress found in publisher's hotel bed. No. Here's what I'll do. I'll just haul the body right back upstairs. Oh, they'd have no reason to suspect me. I'd wear gloves, of course. Nobody would suspect a thing. Now, would you stop? Just take a nice deep breath. And relax. Well, if she isn't dead, why the hell doesn't she just get up and go home? It's late. It's 10 minutes to 8. See, now I thought it was a lot later than that. All right, here's what I'll do. I'll just give her a little chance to catch up on her beauty rest. Then I will very politely knock on the door. Wake up, darling. It's me. Listen, honey, it's time to go home now. I want to give you a nice little kiss. No tears. No good. No tears. Just Goodbye. Sure. What if there are problems? What if she's fallen in love with me? Oh my God. Eugene O'Neill gave the original manuscript of his masterpiece, Long Day's Journey into Night, to his wife Carlotta to celebrate their 11th wedding anniversary. He said that the play was written in blood, sweat, and tears, and he said he further knew that it was probably an inappropriate gift for such a happy occasion. O'Neill did not want the play published until after his death because it was so personally revealing of his family dynamic, which included alcoholism and drug dependence on opiate pain prescription medication. His wishes were adhered to. The play was not published until after his death, and the first performance took place in Massachusetts with the Provincetown Players in 1959. In this scene, James Tyrone Sr., the alcoholic actor-father, is emotionally honest and forthright with his son Edmund for perhaps the first time in his life. And of course, Edmund is the Eugene O'Neill character. Now, the other thing I can tell you about this is that as a young man, Edmund shipped off with the Merchant Marines. So in this particular scene, O'Neill is writing from a place of very personal, deep, close experience. This is Edmund to his father James in Long Day's Journey into Night. You've just told me some high spots in your life. You want to hear mine? They're all connected with the sea. Here's one. When I was on the square-head square rigger bound for Buenos Aires, full moon in the trades, the old hooker driving 14 knots. I lay on the bowsprit facing astern with the water foaming into spume under me. The masts with every sail white in the moonlight towering high above me. I became drunk with the beauty and the singing rhythm of it, and for a moment I lost myself. I actually lost my life. I dissolved in the sea, became white sails and flying spray, became moonlight in the ship and the high, dim-starred sky. I belonged without past or future, within a peace and a unity and a wild joy, within something far greater than my life or the life of man, to life itself, to God, if you want to put it that way. Then another time in the American line, I was lookout on the crow's nest in the early dawn watch. A calm sea that time, only a lazy ground swell and the slow, drowsy roll of the ship. The passengers asleep, no crew in sight, no sound of man. Dreaming, not keeping lookout, feeling alone and above and apart. Watching the dawn creep like a painted dream over sky and sea which slept together. Then the moment of ecstatic freedom came, the peace, the end of the quest, the last harbor, the joy of belonging to a fulfillment far greater than men's pitiful, lousy hopes and fears and dreams. And several other times I've had the same experience when I'm swimming far out or lying alone on the beach, like a saint's vision of beatitude, like the veil of things as they seem drawn back by an unseen hand. For a second you see, and seeing the secret are the secret. For a moment there's meaning. Then the hand lets the veil drop and you're alone again, lost in the fog, moving on toward nowhere for no good reason. You know, Dad, it was a great mistake, my being born a man. And I would have been much more successful as a seagull or a fish. As it is, I'll always be a stranger who can never really want, is never wanted, who can never belong, who must always be a little in love with death. Mary Chase had certainly written other plays, but none of them were as wildly successful as Harvey. Harvey was a smash success in New York for 2 years, and then went on to be a smash success in London for another 2 years. Elwood Dowd is the affable, eccentric, perhaps emotionally deranged man who has a very, very unusual companion and best friend, a 6-foot white rabbit by the name of Harvey. In this scene, Elwood is at Dr. Chumley's retreat, which is a psychiatric rest home for people who have had nervous breakdowns. Elwood thinks he's just at a regular doctor's office getting a checkup. In fact, he's having an intake psychiatric evaluation with the doctor and his nurse assistant. The doctor is asking Elwood Dowd all about Harvey and what it is they do. And Elwood responds to the doctor, do? What is it I do, doctor? Well, Harvey and I, we sit in the bars, we have a drink or two, we play the jukebox. Soon the faces of the other fellows turn towards mine and smile. They're saying, we don't know your name, mister, but you're a fine fellow. Harvey and I warm ourselves in all of these golden moments. We have entered as strangers. Soon we have friends. They come over, they sit with us, they talk with us, they drink with us. They tell about all the big, terrible things they've done, the big, wonderful things they will do, their hopes, their fears, their dreams. Oh, and all very large, because nobody ever brings anything small into a bar. Then I introduce them to Harvey. And he's bigger and grander and more wonderful than anything they can offer me. When they leave impressed. Now, of course, the same people seldom come back twice, but that's just envy, doctor. There's a little bit of envy in the best of us, too bad, don't you think? Well, what's that? How? Well, how do I know his name is Harvey? Well, now, you know, doctor, that was a rather strange coincidence. One night several years ago, I was out walking along Fairfax between 8th and 9th. You know the block? Yes? Well, I just put Ed Hickey into a taxi cab. Ed had been mixing his rye with his gin, and I felt he needed conveying. Well, after I put him in the cab, I started to walk down the street. Suddenly, I heard a voice say, "Good evening, Mr. Dowd." I turned, and there was this giant white rabbit leaning against a lamppost. Well, now, I thought nothing about that. When you've lived in a town, as long as I've lived in this one, you get used to the fact that people know your name. Naturally, I went over to chat with him. He said, "Ed Hickey's a bit spiffed this evening, or am I mistaken?" Now, of course, doctor, he wasn't mistaken. I mean, I think the world and all of Ed, but he was spiffed. Well, we stood there, we chatted for a while. Finally, I said to him, "You have the advantage of me. You know my name, but I don't know yours." Right back at me, he says, "What name do you like?" Well, doctor, I didn't even have to think for a minute. Harvey's always been my favorite name. So I said, "Harvey," and he said, "Well, what a coincidence. That's my name, Harvey." Nobody today writes lyrics like the great Cole Porter. Who else could take a Bendel bonnet, a Shakespeare sonnet, Mickey Mouse, put it into the lyrical line of a song and make it work? Or for that matter, in O'Neill drama, Whistle His Mama, or Camembert. The great genius of Cole Porter is that he takes these icons from literature, theater, opera, ballet, juxtaposes them next to the ordinary and mundane, thereby creating some of the most amazing lyrics. Many, many, many years ago, up in Ogunquit, Maine, at a place called the Off-Broadway Musical Comedy Theater, I played Billy Crocker in Anything Goes. So I'd like to sing a song from Anything Goes. At words poetic, I'm so pathetic that I always have found it best, instead of getting them off my chest, to let them rest unexpressed. I hate parading my serenading, as I'll probably miss a bar. But if this ditty is not so pretty, at least it'll tell you how great you are. You're the top, you're the Colosseum, you're the top, you're the Louvre Museum, you're the melody of a symphony by Strauss, you're a Bendel bonnet, a Shakespeare sonnet, you're Mickey Mouse, you're the Nile, you're the Tower of Pisa, you're the smile on the Mona Lisa. I'm a worthless check, a total wreck, a flop, but if, baby, I'm the bottom, you're the top. You're the top, you're a Waldorf salad. You're the top, you're a Berlin ballad. You're the nimble tread on the feet of Fred Astaire. You're an O'Neill drama, you're Whistler's mama. You're Camembert, you're a rose. You're Inferno's Dante. You're the nose on the great Durante. I'm a toy balloon, which is fated soon to pop. But if, baby, I'm the bottom, you're the top. All right. William Saroyan won the Pulitzer Prize for his play, The Time of Your Life. But he refused to show up to accept the award because he was very weary of what he deemed to be the literary establishment. A critic once asked Saroyan what the most important quality to have in life was, and Saroyan replied, purity of heart. Now, Joe, the cynical alcoholic, who was one of the main characters in this play, certainly has purity of heart. The action takes place in a honky-tonk bar in San Francisco. And Joe is always bailing people out of dire straits and circumstances. Mostly, it seems, by giving them money. Joe seems to have vast sums of money. Another character in the play, Tom, who's kind of a very simple Billy Budd type honest character, and who, by the way, worships the ground that Joe walks on. Tom says to Joe at the top of Act 3, he says, Joe, where do you get all your money? And Joe responds, now don't be a fool, Tom. Listen carefully. If anybody's got any money to hoard or to throw away, you can be sure he stole it from other people. Not from rich people who can spare it, but from poor people who can't, from their lives and from their dreams. I'm no exception. I earn the money I throw around. I stole it like everybody else does. I hurt people to get it. Loafing around like this, I still earn money. The money itself earns more money. I still hurt people. I don't know who they are or where they are. If I did, I'd feel worse than I do. I've got a Christian conscience in a world that's got no conscience at all. Now, the world is trying to develop some sort of a social conscience, but it's having a hell of a time doing that. I've got money. I'll always have money as long as the world stays the way it is, and I don't work. I don't make anything. I drink. I worked when I was a kid, Tom. I worked hard, I mean hard. People are supposed to enjoy life. I decided to get even with the world. But I discovered you can't really enjoy life unless you work, unless you do something. I don't do anything. I don't want to do anything. There isn't anything I could possibly do that wouldn't make me feel ashamed or embarrassed because I can't do simple good things. I haven't the time or the patience, and I'm too smart. Money. Guiltiest thing in the world, Tom. It stinks. Now don't ever bother me about it again. You hear? Howard Lindsay and Russell Crouse co-authored the play Life with Father. It ran for 3,224 performances from the late 30s into the early 1940s, and that is a record which I believe still stands on Broadway today for non-musical productions. The play is about a wealthy upper-crust family living in Manhattan in the Gilded Age. The father, who we know simply as Father Day, is a bit of a curmudgeon. Some might say a misanthrope, a misogynist, but therein lies some of the fun. Father Day does what every good father must eventually do. He has a little tete-a-tete, one-on-one conversation with his son Clarence, who's going off to college in the fall. Father Day wants to make sure that his son Clarence knows how to behave and treat women, making sure, of course, that when he's dispensing this advice to his son, that his own wife is not within earshot. Well, this comes as quite a shock to me. You're being so grown up and all. Still, I might have known that you're going off to college in the fall. You're at an age where you'll be meeting girls. Clarence, there are things about women I think you need to know. Yes, it will be best for you to learn this from me and not to have to learn it for yourself. You see, Clarence, women aren't the angels that you think they are. Now, first, let me explain myself to you. You see, Clarence, we men have to rule this world. It's not an easy job. It takes work, it takes planning, it takes thinking. A man has to be certain of his facts and figures. He has to line things up. He has to reason things out. Now, you take women. Women think. No, see, I'm wrong right there. They don't think at all. They just get all worked up. Now, I love my wife just as much as the next man loves his. But that doesn't mean, Clarence, I have to stand for a lot of falderall. That's the one thing in the world I will not subject myself to. Clarence, if a man thinks a thing is the right thing to do, well, he should do it. If he thinks it's the wrong thing to do, he shouldn't do it. But that's got nothing to do with whether or not he loves his wife. Women, they get all worked up. And if you're having an argument with them, pretty soon they make the argument about whether or not you love them. I swear to God, I don't know how the hell they do it, but they do. But don't you let them, Clarence. Now, you know, your mother certainly knows that there are times with her when I have to be strong and when I have to be firm. Well, Clarence, that's the way you need to be with women. You need to be strong and you need to be firm. All right, you can run along now. You know everything you need to know about women. All right. Robert E. Sherwood wrote the play Abe Lincoln in Illinois. It was first performed in 1939 with Raymond Massey in the leading role as Abraham Lincoln. The time was perceived as right in the country for this dramatization of a great American hero. Abe Lincoln in Illinois is about the goodness of the United States as opposed against the backdrop of totalitarian movements like the Nazi Party. Now, this play is about the 1858 senatorial election where Abraham Lincoln ran against and lost to Stephen A. Douglas. The big issue of the day, of course, was slavery and the abolition movement. So this is the very end of the play, and Abraham Lincoln is addressing not only the assembled audience, but Judge Stephen Douglas, who we will imagine is sitting in that chair stage right. Judge Douglas has just paid tribute to my skill with the dagger. I thank him for that, but I must also admit he can do more with that weapon than I can. He can keep 10 daggers flashing in the air at the same time. Fortunately, he's so good at it, none of the knives ever falls and hurts anyone. He can condone slavery in the South and protest hotly against its extension in the North. He can crowd loyalty to the Union and defense of state sovereignty into the same breath. Thank God we live in a country in which men have the right to strike, and I'm not preaching rebellion, I don't have to. This country with its institutions belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whenever they shall grow weary of their existing form of government, they can exercise their constitutional right to amend it or their revolutionary right to dismember and overthrow it. If the Founding Fathers gave us anything, they gave us that. And I'm not preaching disrespect for the Supreme Court. I'm merely saying that the decisions of mortal men are often influenced by unjudicial bias, and the Supreme Court is composed of mortal men, most of whom, it so happens, come from the privileged classes in the South. Now, there's an old saying, judges are just about as honest as other people, and not more so. In case some of you are wondering who said that, it was Thomas Jefferson. The purpose of the Dred Scott decision is to make property, and nothing but property, of the Negro in all states of the Union. It is the old issue of property rights versus human rights, an issue that will continue in this country when these poor tongues of Judge Douglas and myself have long been silent. It is the eternal struggle of two principles. The one, the common right of humanity, the other, the divine right of kings. As a nation, we began by declaring all men are created equal. There was no mention of any exception to the rule in the Declaration of Independence. But nowadays we practically read it, all men are created equal except Negroes. If we accept this doctrine of race or class discrimination, what is to prevent us from decreeing in the future all men are created equal except Negroes, foreigners, Catholics, Jews, and, well, just plain poor people? Many good citizens, both North and South, agree with the judge that we should accept this conclusion. Don't stir up trouble. Let each state mind its own business. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. That is the complacent policy of indifference to evil. And that policy I cannot but hate. I hate it because of the monstrous injustice of slavery itself. I hate it because it enables our enemies to taunt us, and especially because it causes so many good men amongst ourselves into an open war with the very fundamentals of civil liberties, denying the good faith of the Declaration of Independence and insisting there's no right course of action but that of self-interest. In his closing remarks, the judge said, "We may be the terror of the world. I don't think we want to be that. I think we'd rather be the encouragement of the world, the proof that man is at last worthy to be free. But we will provide no such encouragement unless we can establish our ability as a nation to live and to grow. And we shall surely do neither should these states fail to remain united. Let there be no distinctions as to the definitions of liberty between one section and another, one class and another, one race and another. A house divided against itself, cannot stand. This country cannot endure permanently half slave, half free. Thank you very much. Richard Nash wrote a play called The Rainmaker. It was first performed at the Fulton Theater in 1954 with Darren McGavin in the leading role of Starbuck. Many of you might be more familiar with the 1960 movie version starring Burt Lancaster. The critic for the New York Times called it the touching, funny, and sad story of a heat-parched summer, a lonely ranch girl, and a sweet-talking stranger who could talk a bird out of a tree. The name is Starbuck. Starbuck is the name, lady of the house. Hello. That's a mighty nice dress you got there. It ought to go to a party. No, you sure should have called me. You're in a parcel of trouble. You lost 12 steer in the northern range, 62 in the gullies. The calves are starving. The heifers are down on their knees. This your ranch, mister? I guess I'll talk to you. You got a look of business about you. Just the kind of man I like to talk to. Well, what are you going to do about them cattle? Wherever I go, ahead of me there's drought. But when I leave behind me there's rain. I woke up this morning, I looked out at the world and I said to myself, this world's gone completely out of its mind. And the only thing that can straighten it out is a first-class #1 lunatic. Well, here I am, friends, crazy as a bedbug. Did I introduce myself? Starbuck, Rainmaker. How? Sodium chloride. Pitch it up high in the sky, right up in the clouds, barometricize the tropopause, magnetize occlusions in the sky. You want to know why that sounds like bunk? Because it is bunk, pure and simple. And I say to myself, I'd be ashamed to use any methods like that. My method's like my name, friends, it's my own. You want to hear my deal? $100 in advance, and inside of 24 hours you'll get rain. It's a wetness known as water, aqua pura. Mammals drink it, fish swim in it, little boys wade in it, birds flap their wings and sing like sunrise water. How will I do it? I'll lift this stick. I'll take a giant swipe at the sky, and I'll let down a shower of hailstones as big as cantaloupes. Or I'll yell out a few good old-fashioned Nebraska cuss words, and you turn around, there's a lake where your corral used to be. Or I'll sing a little song, maybe. It'll be so pretty and so sad, it'll make you weep, it'll make your old man weep. The sky will get all misty-like and let down the biggest little tears you ever did see. How will I do it? I don't know. I'll just do it. Last town I brought rain to is called Starbuck. That's right. They named it after me. Dry? That town was so dry, they didn't have enough damp to moisten their eyes. So I got out my big book and my rolling drum and my hat with 3 yellow feathers in it, and I pointed it up at the sky and I said, cumulus, cumulo, nimbulus, nimbulo, cumulus. And pretty soon, way up in the sky, there's a teeny tiny cloud shaped like a little mare's tail. Then another one over there like a whitewashed chicken house. And soon, way up in the sky, there's a herd of white buffalo stampeding across the sky. And then, sister of all good people, down comes the rain. Rain in buckets, rain in barrels, filling the lowlands, flooding the gullies. And when I leave there, I look behind me. I see the prettiest colors in the sky, blue and green and purple and gold. Colors from the rainbow, colors to make you cry. And me, sister, I'm riding right through that rainbow. How about it, Lizzie? You gonna take a chance on a con man like me? All right, I'd like to end the evening with a selection from Tennessee Williams, my favorite Tennessee Williams play, The Glass Menagerie. Like the Eugene O'Neill play, Long Day's Journey into Night, this play, The Glass Menagerie, was very revealing of the Williams family dynamic. The family was abandoned by his father when he was just a young boy, and his mother struggled mightily. This play, The Glass Menagerie, there's 4 characters. Amanda Wingfield, the mother, Tom, which is the Tennessee Williams character, and his sister Laura. In the second act, the gentleman caller, Jim O'Connor, comes. Now, Amanda knows that her son, Tom, wants to fly the coop, that he wants to be a writer. He's unhappy with his job working in a factory, a shoe factory, and she knows that he's going to be leaving very soon. She's very worried about her daughter, Laura, who is painfully shy and has a physical disability. She's been bugging Tom for months. Tom, isn't there some nice young man from the factory that you could bring home to introduce to your sister, Laura? Well, when I was her age, I had so many gentlemen callers. Well, Tom eventually gets Jim to come, and Tom does not know that Jim is already engaged to be married. Of course, at the end of the evening, all of this information comes out. Amanda is seething with rage, and she says to him, you're nothing but an idle dreamer. Why don't you just go to the moon? At that point, the curtain closes, and Tom steps in front of the curtain and addresses the audience for one last time. Well, I didn't go to the moon. I went much further than that. For time is the longest distance between two places. Not long after that, I was fired for writing a poem in the lid of a shoebox. I left St. Louis. I descended the steps of this fire escape for one last time and followed from then on in my father's footsteps, attempting to find in motion what was lost in space. I traveled around a great deal. The cities swept about me like dead leaves, leaves that were brightly colored but torn from their branches. I would have stopped, but I was always pursued by something. It always came upon me unawares, taking me altogether by surprise. Perhaps it was a bit of familiar music. Perhaps it was a piece of transparent glass. Perhaps I'm walking along a street at night in some strange city before I have found companions. I pass the lighted window of a shop where perfume is sold. The window is filled with pieces of delicate, transparent glass like the shattered bits of a rainbow. Then all at once my sister touches my shoulder. I turn and look into her eyes. Oh, Laura, 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 I tried so hard to leave you behind, but I'm more faithful than I ever intended to be. I reach for a cigarette. I cross the street. I go into the nearest bar, talk to the nearest stranger. Anything that can blow out your candles, Laura. For nowadays the world is lit by lightning. Blow out your candles, Laura. And so goodbye. Thank you for spending the last hour with me. Thank you so much.